Well, we made it. We made it to game day. Almost time for the game. It is Orange and Blue today, presented by Champ Honda, Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason, live in Kansas City. And Mace, I just hope it's not ugly tonight. Before we get into all the news and all that, like I just don't want the Broncos to get beat by 30 or 50.
Well, look, the last three games have been one-score games, right? I mean, you've got a 4-point game, a 6-point game, a 3-point game. Uh, I would say, even though there are obvious concerns about the defense and whether it's going to contain this Kansas City attack, I'd say the chances are this game's going to be competitive, and I don't think it's going to be the type of ugly game that I think everybody seems to fear right now.
Right. Where's Brandon Stokely when you need him to talk about the line or whatever? Like, it just, okay, they have been
Who
close games. And this Broncos offense, well, I think they could do some things against the Chiefs defense. Again, we got a lot to get to today's program.
Yeah, I mean, who cares about the line? Now, I mean, I did post a little thing at denversports.com in my numbers piece. If you're a double-digit underdog on the road on Thursday Night Football, those teams have lost 20 games in a row in terms of not the point spread, but the actual loss. And that's all that really matters. Respectfully, for those who do have a sawbuck or two on this, it's all about the result, right? And so,
Yeah.
if you are in a state to where the powers that be in Vegas have deemed you a double-digit underdog for a game on Thursday night, usually that's a place that you can't necessarily get out of. But hey,
Right.
We'll see.
Well,
We're
speaking
fixing
of
to
getting
find
out of
out,
a
right?
place, yeah, I love that. Thank you, Gary Kubiak, for like the greatest line other than "Skins on the Wall" from John Fox. But before we jump into the game, we got to say goodbye to Frank Clark. Like, we
Yeah.
knew this was coming, and you and I looked at each other when we were like, illness on Tuesday in the locker room. It's like, illness, okay. And now reworked his deal, and bye bye, Frank Clark.
Yeah, the whole thing of reworking his deal is that means the contract becomes very palatable trade wise. Look, with Randy Gregory last week, remember the Broncos basically ate a huge chunk of Gregory's contract. So the 49ers only had to pay him the league minimum as a result. So that meant the Broncos got about $800,000 in savings on salary, and that's it. But that's what they decided was the price of of turning a 7th-round pick into a 6th-round pick just to get him gone. Frank Clark, it's a little bit different. The contract certainly wasn't quite as onerous, but now by him doing that, there probably isn't a team that couldn't easily take on that contract. When you're talking about a league minimum salary and a player who's been very productive in the playoffs with Kansas City, 10.5 sacks in 12 playoff games over 4 years. I mean, there's going to be interest in Frank Clark on the market as a result of that postseason production. This certainly makes it very palatable for a team to easily trade for him. It just sets it up, and I mean, probably he feels like if he goes somewhere else, the contract will again be reworked to probably to get some incentives back, and he still has incentives, built into his contract that he certainly isn't going to hit in Denver, obviously, and maybe he hits them going somewhere else. So I think that there's all sorts of layers to it. But as Adam Schefter said this morning on 104.3 The Fan when he was on with Mike Evans and Mark Schlereth, it's heading toward divorce, and seems like Frank Clark has played his last game in Denver, even though maybe it takes a little while for a trade to work out. I think we know now what the illness meant. So
Right.
for 2 games, no sacks for Frank Clark. I mean, it's a Simeon Rice-like stat line, correct? If you remember from 2007, Simeon Rice coming in at the end of his career with a lot of pomp and circumstance, and then did absolutely nothing for the Denver Broncos, and then got cut. And it's kind of similar with Frank Clark as well, another veteran toward the end who just didn't bring it. So there it is. By the way, Frank Clark, I mean, he wasn't playing that well in the preseason, if you recall, right? So
Yeah, he was dogging it. That's why they made him play the entire 49ers game.
Yeah, like interesting thing about that game, the way they dispersed the reps was they had all the edges go deep into the third quarter, but the first ones that they took out were Randy Gregory and Jonathan Cooper. And then Nick Bonito and Frank Clark went longer, right? And so for all the frustration over where things end up with Randy Gregory, make no mistake, Randy Gregory was ahead of Frank Clark in terms of where he fit in to the algorithm of Edge for a while until basically the last couple of weeks.
Right. I don't want to belabor it because we do have a game to preview, but I just want to know what you think because everyone probably can guess what I think. But now with this Frank Clark deal, what's that say about George Payton? Like, how does this look for George Payton?
I've said it on social media, I'll say it here. Since February 2013, the period that ends all sentences is Sean Payton, not George Payton. I think the thing is it's very popular to take shots at George Payton in the general manager's role right now. But when we talk about moves that have happened this year, Sean Payton's responsible too. So I don't think it says as much about George Payton as a lot of people believe it does.
Okay, we'll move along and get into this game.
I'm guessing you disagree, by the way, with me on this.
Yeah. Well,
but again,
save that.
You've put George Payton kind of as the head on a platter at this point, and a lot of people have.
I think he will be the scapegoat for this season.
I think he will be too, but I don't think
it's unfortunate. He's a good man.
Yeah, but I don't think certainly the missteps of this year are solely on George Payton, right? I mean, I think we can talk about the things before then, the Nathaniel Hackett hire, the contract extensions to Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick in 2021. Those are George Payton things, right? The Randy Gregory contract, that's a George Payton thing. When you get to this year, you flip the calendar of 2023 and Sean Payton walking in the door, then I think the culpability is shared at minimum, if not more, on Sean Payton.
All right. Upset City is our next topic, and just think what that could mean. It's dual entendre, right? I feel like Jay-Z without all the money. Upset City could be Denver's upset because the Broncos get embarrassed, and this game could be like within 10, within 2 touchdowns, maybe. Garbage time matters, but Upset City could also mean, hey, the Broncos close contests before. It's not like Kansas City's been blowing them out of the water, Mace.
Yeah, and there's a path to win, but it's a narrow path. We've talked about it. I actually had a conversation about it today. I've got a royal blue shirt on right now. The team that came in here in 2019, the Indianapolis Colts, took the air out of the ball, basically. They pounded it on the ground. They extended drives, and thus were in position to take advantage when the Chiefs were a bit off with some penalties and self-inflicted wounds, right? So that's really what you're hoping. Can you keep this thing close enough? Can you play a low possession game like you did in week 1 against Las Vegas and get it to where a false start here, Patrick Mahomes, who's had a tendency to make some interesting decisions against the Broncos that have led to turnovers. Mahomes gets a little bit too cute, tries to force it in there, tries to jam it at Pat Surtain and gets picked off. Do you set up to where a mistake or two can allow you to get the upset? Can you be close enough to where you're positioned to capitalize if the Chiefs are a little bit off? To me, that's the equation. A huge part of that is that this isn't a game where it's 10 to 12 possessions for each side. It's more like 5 to 7 on each side. That's what you're going for. Some long, sustained drives to shorten this contest.
Sustained success, as I even mess up saying it right there. Sustained success and keep it close. I mean, a Josie Jewell pick, you're trying to go after Travis Kelce or something like that. I think the return of Javonte Williams will help, and the return of Greg Dulcich, who's expected to play. He was supposed to be a big part of what this team does. So keep it close. Get one of those bounces. Everything's not going to go the Chiefs' way tonight. So when it doesn't, be ready to take advantage and score touchdowns.
Yeah, take advantage. And look, I want to see a little more Marvin Mims Jr. out there. I know, obviously, he's had the fumbles the last couple of weeks, but I want to see him try to take the top off of defense. He talked, of course, about the physicality of the Chiefs cornerbacks, but you can use that against them, right? And so if they're, we talked about the junk jams earlier this week, pardon me, and they're going to try to jam you, and they're going to throw some junk at you. But if you can break free from that right there at the snap, they're trying to disrupt the timing. But if you can break free and get a little bit of separation, take advantage of the vertical speed, get downfield, there are going to be some opportunities here. So, it's there's going to be some openings. The Chiefs are an excellent team. They're world champions for a reason. The Broncos know them pretty well, right? Mm-hmm. And usually that familiarity brings two teams closer together, not to where it's a shared moment, but brings them closer to each other than their records would indicate.
And I'll say this, Broncos have nothing to lose. Most dangerous team in the NFL is a team that has nothing to lose. Nobody thinks they'll win. Everyone thinks it'll be embarrassing. Like, okay, yeah, think that. And Broncos go keep it close, battle them hard, be physical, and run the damn ball. With those jump jams, like, listen, you got to set it up with running the ball so they're peeking in the backfield and you can go over the top. If you don't run the ball, granted, if the game is close, if it gets out of hand, you won't be able to. But if you don't run the ball, Mace, you will not give yourself the best chance to win.
They have the freedom to be deliberate. They have the freedom to take some chances. You said nothing to lose. Janis Joplin long ago saying that freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose, right? Here we are.
The second time I've heard that this week.
That's a lyric that my dad used to always say. Still does from time to time. Mm-hmm. That's actually where like the whole kind of quoting thing comes from. It comes from my dad. Like a lot of song lyrics from back in the 60s that would work his way into lessons he was trying to share with me and all that. So it took root. Took root.
Yeah. I was at where I get my comic books printed yesterday, and I saw Bob, who's like an old hippie who loves the Broncos. Has watched him. He was naming the quarterbacks before Craig Martin. I was like, I don't remember them.
A little Don Horn, a little Charlie Johnson.
Yeah.
Don't forget Marlon the Magician, Marlon Briscoe.
Oh yeah.
Steve Ramsey was around there right before Craig Morton.
Yeah, he was talking about how this team is as embarrassing as the teams before Super Bowl 12, before the Orange Crush, like before you're in my time that, a lot of Broncos fans don't remember when it was this bad. And I also told Bob, because he's an old hippie, I said, Bob, the hippies were right. The hippies were right. Upset City. We'll see what the Mile High City's like, and then we'll see what the aftermath is, Mace. I think I just want to get through tonight. The post game, I won't lose my mind. Trust me, everybody. I know people like that. I don't think it's good for my physical health, as the Broncos literally made me sick last week after the post game.
It's good for viewership, though. Yes. Let me make that clear. Although, like you said, people were asking if you were okay.
I just want to see the aftermath.
We have a caring audience, okay?
Yes, I actually, good people.
I bumped into one of our viewers yesterday when I got into here to Kansas City, right? I mean, we've got people watching this show who really give a damn about us, and we appreciate all of you. But yeah, look, I'm gonna quote you, your mantra, light and sweet, baby. You just gotta. Just got to keep an even keel. Look, but your friend Bob is right though about how bad it is, because if the Broncos lose tonight, this is, I believe, the 5th 1-5 start that they've had. It'll be tied for the worst 6-game start in franchise history. The other times it happened, once was 1994, the year that got Wade Phillips fired as head coach, and the other 3 were back in the 60s. So this sort of thing, it's not common around here, but it used to be common. Your friend Bob remembers that.
Mm-hmm. Super quick, Mace, before we're done with today's abbreviated program. Got a lot to do. Mace got to get to the stadium, all this. If they lose, will the phones be worked Friday? Will something be done Friday? Will it take over the weekend? Like, when other transactions are done, maybe a Jerry Jeudy, maybe a Cortland Sutton, maybe a Justin Simmons, how quick do you expect this to come together if that is the case?
The likelihood of anything happening on Friday, I think, is slim. unless the groundwork has been laid before. Don't forget also with Friday, I mean, most teams are getting ready for a Sunday game, right?
Mhm.
So maybe it's something with a team that's on a bye, perhaps, or the conversations have happened before. But I do expect if we see things, I mean, maybe Frank Clark happens sooner because now you got that restructure in place. And Randy Gregory happened last Friday, so that maybe that if it happened on Friday wouldn't be a shock to me. But I think in general, probably keep your eyes more on early next week. Most of these deals are going to get done on the Monday or Tuesday of the following week, and so that's when I think you start picking it up, and then I think it'll pick up even more if you get close to the trade deadline and deals haven't happened. I think that's deadline spur action, as we know, and sometimes that October 31st deadline may spur some action that hasn't happened to that point. But yeah, I'd be surprised if anything happens tomorrow. I know everyone's kind of, you know, thinking, is thinking, oh, sooner the better. But it takes two to tango, and a lot of other teams are not in the same spot preparation wise for their game as the Broncos will be, as they do get a little bit of a mini bye this weekend before they come back to Sanctuary Health Training Center.
He is Andrew Mason. You follow him on socials at Mace Denver. I'm at C Salami. OBT is a BFD. And let's go Broncos, man. Let's do it up. Orange and Blue Today, presented by Sean Ponda. He's Mace. I'm Cease. Everyone, thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.